Look at that. I am on time. It's amazing. My voice is still froggy. Please forgive me. I'm doing the best that I can. It's just kind of got to run its course. But I thank you for being here. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way, shall we? I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a legal professional. No part of this video or this channel is medical nor legal advice. For such guidance, please see your chosen quote-unquote expert in the field. Okay, so I'm going to jump into a few things, but I will ramble just for a moment or two so anyone who decides to show up live has a moment or two to show up. So the next thing, on the main channel, I have uploaded a Seven Sorrows Rosary with a little commentary just to kind of explain what it is and how to get people into a meditative state. I find it's very nice. It takes you out of your own grief or pain and helps you to have compassion for somebody else's pain. And that's a good thing, I think, in this time especially. So if you'd like to see that or a devotional daily reading, I think I might start doing that as well over there on the Brie and Jen channel. So if that interests you, bop over there. Striving to be a Saint is a channel I still want to do, but I don't want to plan anything too far in the future right now. I'm just kind of trying to go moment by moment and just be grateful for what I have and all the experiences that I've had and all of the people that I've met throughout my life. It is definitely a good time to be reflective. The next thing, I'm not a fearmonger. This channel is not about fear-mongering. If being aware makes you fearful, that would be your own heart that you should examine. I'm not a popular YouTuber. I don't have a sponsorship behind me, nor any talent agents or legalese experts. It is just me, some woman in her bedroom with her furry companions, trying to do my small part. And this is not a monetized channel. So please understand that it is definitely a labor of love. Why am I telling you that? Because we deserve to know who we're listening to and what their motivations are or are not. I do come at life from a Christian perspective, but not modern, not whatever it looks like today on YouTube especially. That is not what I stand for. In our spiritual growth, as we gain more information and more experience, we should be able and willing to change with more information, but also just to grow through our experiences and to be able to handle things with more maturity. And on that note, the last thing I will say leading into this is I'm well aware there are channels out there passively aggressively addressing things that I've said in my videos. So let me make this perfectly clear in my own words. It can be used out of context, I suppose, but there's a reason that I am building a physical profile of what some of these people look like. Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. So let me just give you an example. When I talk about cats, I'm not saying that everyone who has a cat is a Babylonian, but I am saying everyone who is a Babylonian or in the Temple of Set or Maat or any of their other affiliations, it is, they do have cats. So let me clarify that again. I'm not saying that everyone with a cat is Babylonian, but I am saying that every Babylonian has a cat. I'm not saying that every person who is bald is a fallen angel, but I am saying that fallen angels appear to be bald. That's why they covet women's hair so much. And a lot of them, this isn't for love. They're not doing what they're doing because they love humans. Some of them might have been in lust, but it's a different story now. So I just had to address that. I know there are things being passively aggressively stated. If you have something to say to me, let's just be clear. Let's be adults, right? But I'm not going to be an exposed channel. I'm not going to put people on the chopping block. I just don't do that. That's not what this channel is about. I don't think it's productive. So I've rambled enough. Let me get into what I was going to talk about. Turn the comments on as long as they're respectful. Ah, Katia! Hi, girl. I don't think I can give any. Oh, see, I don't think I can give anyone a wrench while I'm live. But let me think about it. I was just talking about you and I was just praying for you. I include you in my prayers all the time. I hope you're well. All right, so let's get to it. We have short memories. That's by design. We are constantly distracted. Our short-term memory as a whole is garbage, to be honest. Goldfish have longer short-term memories, and their memories are something like 30 seconds. And I'm being real. I'm a part of this society too. So when I say us, we, I'm definitely including myself. All right. In 2017, before, and 2019, before CV became a thing, before lockdowns, before quarantine, before a whole generation of people were traumatized by their own government in a somewhat abusive relationship style. Absolutely, Katie. I always pray for you, always. I'm sorry. I'm just glad to see you. So I got a little distracted. I apologize, guys. So in 2017 and 2019, NASA has this track record for doing things during the eclipses. Personally, if we don't look at what they are, I'm going to flat out call them ritualistic in modus operandus. In their modus operandi, they are very ritualistic, as is CERN, and you know this, I know this, we know this from looking at that stuff for years. Just like we know words are spells and words have power. This is why I don't entertain those conversations when they come up. Most of the people on this channel have walked through this journey with me. We are past that point. And again, if somebody needs help outside of, the video topics, that's fine. But I'm trying to keep things as streamlined as possible now because I know I do things in a different style from other people. I think it's important to show our work and where we're getting information from, and it's important to build that trust. Now, I tell you, I have a decent memory. I don't forget things I read. I think that's why God called me to the specific purpose that he called me to. Just like he might have called you because you're good with numbers, right? And he wants you to reveal things in his workings with numbers or nature or animal husbandry or agriculture, any of those natural positions that we're supposed to be attending to. Anyone that knows their scripture, these fallen ones gave up their first estate, and that is their goal. This is why they want you to think the Mandela effect. Oh, we are in a different place. They want you to give up your sovereignty to the actual land, to terra firma. And I don't believe that we're supposed to do that, though I don't hold a lot of weight in, quote unquote, this worldly life. We were placed in the garden to tend to it and to take care of it. And the Sabbath was created for us, not us for the Sabbath. So all this arguing about certain things within Christianity and, between Christians and Muslims, like Buddhists and anybody, like it's just not productive for us. And our leaders have already gone far enough astray that we need to try and be as amicable, as forgiving, and as open as possible to each other without losing our own identity that God gives us. Okay? That our identity in Christ, some people just say God. Okay? I'm not going to argue over semantics on this channel. Words are very important. Do they have power over you to kill you and this, that, and the other? If you give somebody else power, I'm sure they do. I don't. So our memories are short, but let's scratch the surface here real quick and do that just to make it easier to read. The ads aren't as in your face and all that. Why NASA is sending bacteria into the sky on balloons during the eclipse. It has to do with life on Mars. Now, again, we're going to go to the actual NASA site itself because for TIs especially, there's something else included here, and I want you to be able to check that out. Real quick, I am going to ask you if you understand the flow of the channel as a whole, and if you are able to comprehend the way in which I use words, please do give the video itself the thumbs up because that lets me know that I'm at least making sense to some folks out there. And I know some people won't, and I know some people won't just to be rude. that's fine. It doesn't matter to the channel. It's just something that I use to help me gauge if I'm doing all right. And nobody seems to be leaving comments. And again, the algorithm has been playing with me quite a bit recently. I do not consent. I'll just make that very clear. And I pray over my devices, my connections, and every video that I do. So if you're confused, there's a reason for it, and you probably should just go somewhere else. As the moon blocks in a total solar eclipse, remember this is 2017, okay? More than 50 high altitude, and that's weird too, the eclipse was on my dad's birthday, but let me continue. More than 50 high altitude balloons in over 20 locations across the U.S. will soar up to 100,000 feet, allegedly, in the sky. On board will be Raspberry Pi cameras, weather sensors, and modems to stream live eclipse footage. They'll also have metal tags coated with very hardy bacteria because NASA wants to know whether they will survive on Mars. How do we break this down when the media tells us something? First of all, there's only a couple reasons the media tells us something. One, to lead us astray and cover something else up. Two, to instill a form of fear in us. Okay? And when I say cover stuff up, I mean God as well. This would be a very good example for quote-unquote plagues, like the plagues of Egypt. If something started, say, after this eclipse, I don't know, a little bit after, it's possible maybe you'd think, okay, this is responsible for it. Is it or not? Tomatoes to tomatoes. I mean, whether it is or not, it happened, right? And God allowed it to happen. So you can call it a plague of God, a plague of Egypt. It doesn't personally bother me, but I need you to understand that I'm trying to get across. God is working, and we do have enemies. Both of these things are true. We are in a binary society, a binary system. People don't like that. I don't know what to tell those people. You're not going to know what joy is when it comes along if you've not suffered. You're not going to know what real love is like I do today if you've not been neglected and disregarded, not even hated, just neglected. So there's a reason all these things are happening. Now, when the media tells us something and they frame something in such a way, usually it's to cover up things, either to cover up wickedness or to cover up God, to hide God. They don't want you to know their evil deeds. They don't want you to know it's an anti-human agenda, because then you're going to start asking, well, aren't they human too? Wouldn't this affect them? Because that's how I started this journey, is I'm like, wait a second, why are elitists allegedly doing all this when it can hurt themselves and their children and their food and air and water for years to come as well? Well, if they're not human, it makes perfect sense. And again, I know this is far out for some people, but Occam's razor says the easiest and clearest explanation is usually the truest, the one that you don't have to jump through a lot of things for. And all I can say is the reason there's all these anti-human agendas is it's got to be somebody hating humans. So when the media tells us something, they're either covering something good or bad up, or they're talking to each other. And you can know which is which by the numbers that are attached to the articles themselves. And again, I'm still learning all this, decoding, defragmenting things. I'm just sharing because this is how I learned. If it wasn't for people in the comments for years just feeding me bits of the gospel, I would have never came back to God. I wouldn't have known, you know what I mean? Even at the time, I didn't know what was happening, because they wouldn't, to get through to people, they're not saying which verse and number and all that it's from. They're just speaking, right? It's a part of them. And I know there are people out there getting ridiculed for that right now, but we have to reach people however we can. We need to be in a state of grace at this point, and that means you have to forgive, and to forgive, you have to love. And I don't mean to preach. Maybe I don't know. I just let the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, take hold during these. Oh, they want to know that allegedly they did this to figure out what would happen on Mars. And I don't know. I don't know how they make the correlations. What happens to these bacteria once they're on Mars? Do they mutate? Do they die? Or can they continue living undisturbed, colonized worlds other than our own? Now remember, let's hold fast to this as well. The Gospel of the Essenes refers to Satan as a parasite that is within, and there's only one way to get rid of that. To answer these questions, we need to run experiments here on Earth. And the eclipse was the perfect opportunity. I said, oh my gosh, that's like being on Mars. How? How, if we allegedly have entirely different atmospheres, entirely different levels of oxygen, nitrogen, they don't even have much oxygen. Why? Just because our planet's going to be red for 3 minutes or orange? I don't know. I'm not physics girl, but this doesn't make any sense to me. Yet again. Okay, so they're being sent up by teams across the nation at high schools and colleges. Wow, they really do indoctrinate them into this ritualistic mode of behavior. And again, religion is ritualistic. Our days are ritualistic. Brushing your teeth every morning is a morning ritual. That's why we're looking into coffee and things. Why do we do these things? Where do they come from originally? And are they good for us? We have to look at these things ourselves. We can't let anyone else tell us anymore what's good, what's bad, what's in that book, what's in this book. We need to look ourselves. And I'm not saying you need to be a physics major. I'm not. You don't have to be a mathematician. If you understand the basics, then you at least understand these articles and these studies that they're presenting to you. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so this is... Okay, let's get out of here. Now, this is The Verge from 2017 from that eclipse. Now, now look, they're going to do it again, but we're not looking at that just yet. We're going to go over here. Okay, so balloon observations. NASA uses high-altitude balloons to launch sensitive scientific payloads that observe the universe. These balloons make observations above the most of the Earth's obscuring atmosphere, making research into the full breadth of spectral wavelengths possible. Okay, now that kind of makes sense, that part. Now, if you're talking about light rays and that type of thing, that makes sense to me. I get that. What I don't understand is okay, we're going to put bacteria. That don't make no sense to me. But for this one, again, they're saying that this is completely different. Okay, so students will conduct high-altitude balloon flights from more than 50 locations across the 2017 path of totality from Oregon to South Carolina, providing live videos and images from near space. It says, are you interested? Okay, now let's take a look at this graphic. Can I make it big? Okay, so this is 2017. What are they doing? Okay, so let's start here. On board the balloons are 5.8 gigahertz, are a 5.8 gigahertz modem for transmitting video, and a 900 megahertz modem for transmitting images, both of which are run by Raspberry Pi 2 computers. They think they're cute. The balloons will ascend to 100,000 feet above the Earth and will burst shortly after the conclusion of the eclipse. The project consists of 57 high-altitude ballooning teams of students at universities and high schools from around the country. Iridium satellites in combination with GPS satellites communicate the location of each balloon. Iridium. Now that anyone who has looked into alleged chemtrails, iridium should be familiar. Now let me be clear too, when I talk about alchemy and alchemizing your emotions, that's a good thing. Like we should be grown enough again to be able to sit down and meditate for a few minutes and take ourselves into the state of mind in which we need to be if we lose our composure. Alchemy with metals is dangerous. It can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Again, I'm not physics girl. I know that we have benefited greatly from these things, but we've also been poisoned by such things, allegedly. Okay? So let's continue. And I think it's telling us a few different things here. Now, via the Iridium satellite, data, the Federal Aviation, the FAA, will be able to track all project balloons at the same time, simultaneously. Now, it tells you here, the Raspberry Pi computers pair with the ground station computer and transmit video images from the balloon to ground station through radio waves. The video and images transmitted to the ground station computers are directly streamed online, where the footage can be accessed by any device. Basically, what this reminds me of is the smell-o-vision thing on Willy Wonka. Remember where they pixelated the Oompas and the one girl? And I got to do a video on that because Willy Wonka is not a happy story. As much as I liked parts of it as a child, it's all about why you should not be judged and found lacking. It's all about tekel. It's all that Hebrew term tekel. It's all about being the bad egg and being a tear and tossed onto the fire. And but that's what that reminds me of. Now, if we go, can I open it? Just show it to me. There we go. Okay, so this tells you all about the 2017 eclipse ballooning project, exposing microorganisms to the stratospheric conditions. It is colder up there. It will be colder without the sun. I can see them saying, okay, this could be like Mars, but it's not like that forever. Is that how it downloaded? Was that little thing? Okay, well, we pretty much read that, so let's move on. So you see where it was. Now we have it also in 2022. Again, 2022, they're doing the same thing. All right? Is anyone else getting deja vu here? So, NEBP, National Eclipse Ballooning Project, implemented during the 2017, 2019, and 2020 total solar eclipses. This new effort will broaden participation of STEM learners by immersing their teams from a wide range of higher education institutions. An innovative NASA mission-like adventure in data acquisition and analysis through scientific ballooning. Lovely. The Eclipse Ballooning Project was a major boost in my confidence for what I am capable of on a team or individually. I was able to go on to the career I truly wanted. Okay, so again, we get into wanting to observe the atmospheric phenomena and conduct individually designed experiments. Atmospheric science track teams. Yeah, which experiments? The 53 teams divided into 9 pods. What does your team hope to achieve? And this goes on to give like basically their mission statement. Objective 1.3, advance participants' understanding of the importance of internal, external, organizational, and worldview diversity in education and the workplace. Let's speak on diversity for a moment. Diversity is important, especially when you're counting numbers and statistics. You need to understand your control group, and a control group are the people who do not receive a placebo, medication, a therapy, whatever it is, the experiment, okay? The control group are basically the rats that you're not going to do anything with. You need to see where they start and where they finish. So in order to do this, you need to gear things towards specific ethnicities. Why am I mentioning this? Because again, certain things can happen to just certain people. Your brain is on a specific frequency for you. Certain sound waves, wavelengths, and frequencies can harm just you. Much like the same can be said for our cells and inner workings. Again, I'm not a doctor. No part of this is medical advice. You can see the disclaimers in the description box at the end of the video. Advanced learners, another goal, understanding the process of science. Now look at this, 2.2, 2.1, 2.3, 2.2, 2.2, 2.2. Create, enhance, networks and partnerships. Oh, on another note, yesterday I saw when Biden was campaigning during the election, which again, I don't watch that stuff. I don't have cable. It doesn't interest me at all. These people, I'll never meet them. They have almost no effect on my personal life. Do I care what happens to others? Of course, as a Christ follower, I do. But, there's a point. I'm not going to risk my salvation and go against God because man is peer pressuring me or some such thing like that. But on his text and things, his number was something like 330-8332 or something like that. And, you could just see all the threes there. And I told you I live in a 330 area code. Numbers attached to certain people or certain situations for a reason. Or they include them in the links and the articles for a specific reason. 3.3, let's look at that because that's an interesting number. Advanced, equitable, accessible national eclipse application capabilities through collaboration with the SciAct Heliophysics Education Activation Team, or HEAT, and SciAct Eclipse Soundscapes Citizen Science Project. So again, these same words are being used over and over and over again. Chip, STEM, all these types of things, right? Anagrams are constantly being used. All right, so let's get out of here. Now let's look and see what they're going to do now. What will be their reasoning now? They must not have enough information. They need different information. What is happening? And again, most people aren't told, hey, you want to be part of a ritual? Satanic initiation often doesn't work the way that you think it does. Oftentimes there aren't people in robes coming at you from, alcoves, although if they want to be dramatic, they can do that type of thing. It's very subtle in our society. I was sitting down writing my testimony out because I think it's important to have it in a concise and, all in one place way. Anyways, I was writing it down and I'm looking and I'm like, it was all so slow. Like my mom started having those Time Life books around on metaphysics, and then here's a Ouija board from, it's a board game. If it's from Hills or Walmart or Kmart or wherever, it's all so subtle that you don't even realize because you're a child and you know nothing. You don't understand what's happening. So, again, when I say certain things, let's make sure that we are being very clear because I speak very clearly to the point where I overspeak just so people cannot misunderstand me. And still they do. When somebody asks you, hey, how do you want this? And you say, well, if you're asking, this is how I would prefer it. And this happens almost on a daily basis. And still they do the opposite of that. There's something wrong. There's a disconnect happening. How is this disconnect in communication happening with so many of us when we're supposed to be so connected? So these young ones, they don't know what they're participating in. They just are told it's science, and they do their experiments. They don't know that some of the things they're doing are anti-God because they don't know God yet. They've not been raised up knowing God. And the ones who have, again, they're told it's science. There's nothing wrong with it. And a lot of times, yes, I love science. I believe in science. I believe that shows us how God is working in our world. What I don't like is pseudoscience, where they slap the label of science on it, and what it really is some type of ritualistic magic that comes from the muck in the mire, spiritually speaking. And that goes against consent. So all of this, everything that has happened, as much as they say they believe in consent, no, they don't. I don't care how many times you put it in front of somebody's face. You don't know how that person best learns because you're not the Most High God. Try asking somebody if they consent to something. Chances are they're going to say no if you ask them about 90% of this stuff. Chances are we as citizens would say, no, I do not consent to any of this. I don't consent to towers being right next to schools and churches, right? I don't consent to my drinking water being poisoned. I don't consent to animals being called just for the sake of calling them. And again, there are people out there doing these passive-aggressive videos. If you have some problem, be an adult. Let's have a discussion. And it doesn't have to be a debate. Don't be an immature child. We've got to stop letting social media take us so far out of our framework on how we're supposed to be, Wanting your neighbor to fail is wanting yourself to fail. Wanting the head of your family to fail or your partner to fail is wanting your whole house to fail. You're working against yourself. Why would you do such a thing? A wise person once told me that, and now they are doing just that. Something has happened to change people. They're either scared and they've sold out in a tyrannous way, which is, I know, a given, like that's already happened. Or they're not the same people, or they're not who we thought they were. So this is giving you, this is our final dress rehearsal at the start of next month. So, wow. Their final dress rehearsal. So again, they're declaring that this is their final dress rehearsal. And I'm going to have to bring forth a warning video on what God has made clear to my heart. And I can't tell anyone else what to do. But I would not go outside that. I would not go out in it. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to disagree with me. Nothing. But I would not go out in it. Somebody told me, and I have to rebuke them, and I'm going to have to do a high strangeness video on this because I had my Snow White moment. And basically, who in that story of Snow White, who would act as the Wicked Witch, was trying to give me an apple and it was saying, oh, you won't be able to resist going outside that day. And I should have right then said, oh, yes, I will. I rebuke that. If God wants me in, that's where I'm going to be. Final dress rehearsal. A statement like that should make your radar go up no matter who you are or what paradigm you come from. And again, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. Because we'll get there in a second. I want to show you some. It's just a club. Everybody here volunteers to do it because they like to do it. It's just a club. That's all, guys. Floating laboratories is what they're calling them. The eclipse itself is kind of stirring up the atmosphere as it traverses across the country. What we're looking for is the signature or the effect of the movement of the shadow. They already know this. I showed this to you in the Carrington video, where just because hasn't been a study yet doesn't mean that something isn't true. It just hasn't been connected yet. We were able to connect the Carrington incident to an eclipse and to an earthquake, all around the same 6-month period. And the earthquake, just a few weeks within or outside of the eclipse time. They know these things are connected. Now, let's look at something else because I want to get this all done at once. So everybody, because I have people asking me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So let's use the National Guard has been activated in almost every state, if you've been paying attention. If you've been paying attention, they're being activated in pretty much every state where the eclipse is going over. The hometown heroes of Tower 22. I gotta click on it. I'm sorry. You know how I feel about that number. Undisclosed location. Beautiful. Beautiful. The guardsmen hailed from hometowns across America, but when they found themselves deployed to a remote desert outpost in the no man's land where the borders of Jordan, Iraq, and Syria meet, they built a strong family. And when their base, Tower 22, was attacked in January, they say those bonds saved lives. So there's the 22. That's one of the numbers. It's actually an Antichrist number. 200 times 22. 222. The zeros get dropped. Okay? Carnage was evident. I'm not going to read this whole article. Again, I'm just trying to showcase a couple of things. You're going to have to, like, if you want to delve deeper into certain things, you're going to have to look at those on your own. Elon Musk calls out women being punched. I have a whole theory on that I don't even, again, they're activating National Guard everywhere. They've been here, I think, since CV began on those boats in New York and LA. I want to say that they're UN. That's where my heart is leading me. These are supposed to be people that keep us safe. But what they really keep safe is the system. They are all, whenever they're dispatched, it is what? It is to keep what? Law and order. It is not to help people. It is to keep law in order so that people don't panic, so that they don't get too uppity, so that they don't get excited, so that they don't eyeball somebody in the wrong way. But they're going to be all across these states, and they're closing schools preemptively. Now, did they do this with 2017's eclipse? No. Not as far as I know. Not like this. They're being called everywhere. Come on, guys. I'm looking for recent. You know what I'm doing here. All right, come on. All right, activated. Sorry about that. The governor can call the National Guard into action, such as storms, fires, earthquakes, or civil disturbances. The president can activate the National Guard for participation in federal missions. See how that works? They say we're supposed to be, smaller government. The governor's supposed to have, that way there isn't too much federal control. And now they're starting to bury this already, like it's getting... Fox 32, Chicago, National Guard activated for, and it's really big in Oregon. I'm not sure what they're doing there or why. No. Activates border force, we know that. But again, they're using different reasons. Oh, wait, let me try this. Click on the news. No, news. Oh, jeez. Wow, this is ridiculous. It's your past week. Extra police, even National Guard troops being deployed. Now, this is from Belgrade. The fact that we're being allowed to see it is amazing, to be honest with you. Oh, come on then. Government warnings. Oh, okay, now they're not going to let me see it. Yeah, you got to buy it or something. Really, guys? Okay, yeah, they're not going to let me look at it. How silly. Oh, wow, 200th. So there's the 2. Red Horse mobilized for Operation Guardian Twister. What is that? Red Horse. Like what? And the 4 horses of the apocalypse? Ask yourself why they're using all these biblical terms. Why is that happening? National Guard activated to help local flood relief efforts. The bridge that went down, again, anyway, I'm not even going to use the word. Anyone who's been awake the last 4 or 5 years should understand at this point the media has been replaced and they are lying to us. They're all new news anchors from just the last 4 or 5 years. There is no investigative journalism anymore. Everybody's using pictures and images. Nobody's actually live in any location anymore. But somehow everything is filmed. We're not supposed to be under CCTV here in America, but we are. We are. There's cameras everywhere. Okay? The easiest way to bring a nation to its knees is to cut off its transportation routes for goods and products and services. You cut off their fuel lines, you cut off their food, and then you localize them and immobilize them so they're stuck where they sit. I'm not an expert. I'm not a war strategist. My dad taught me how to play chess, and I know how to look a few moves ahead. A few people that thought I couldn't play probably should have made sure I wasn't throwing games. Anyways, Governor Abbott deploys more National Guard troops to border. NASA shares plans for April's total solar eclipse. 2 hikers rescued after being trapped overnight. That's awesome that they were actually rescued. Is this from X? Is this from Twitter? Because they always goof up. The space agency will brief the public about how it is preparing for the event, as at least 15 states prepare to be impacted by darkness. 15 states across the U.S. are expected to experience up to 4.5 minutes of darkness as a total solar eclipse impacts a swath of the country on April 8th. Now, here's the thing. When you have all these crowds of people coming in, it is obviously going to cause an influx of goods and services that are going to start to be drained. Get whatever you need now. Don't be rushing around at the last minute. And if you have no money, take your milk jugs, fill them full of water, put a drop or two of bleach in them. They'll be fine for you to drink if you need them. Okay? Have a wrench or something handy in case you would ever need to shut down your gas lines. And these are just common sense. These are things that we should be doing anyways to be a little more self-sufficient and tend to our needs. Okay? We have running water. We should make use of it while we have it. And I'm not saying to go over and beyond and fill bathtubs full a day. I'm saying a jug a day. All right? There are small things you can do. I have basically been what I consider to be poor my whole life, at least poor in America, which isn't poor at all. But I couldn't stock up on things. But if something happens, I have water, I have candles, I have the basics, right? So there are a lot of people heading to different states, different areas, and that will cause, that does make sense to have people on standby. That's not my problem with this. The problem is everything that's led up to this point with the lockdowns and the quarantines. And again, yes, it all does feel like dress rehearsal. What will happen? I think that things will change again. Probably irrevocably, at least for a time. And will that be good or bad? That depends on us. That has everything to do with how we are treating each other. So Oklahoma, they're pretty big on it there. I'm not sure what's going on, but they also have like a lot of strange farming laws, and they're trying to kill out the small farmers' farms. So there's a lot going on with that state to begin with their drinking water, and they're not supposed to be using too much, and just this whole thing, right? If Dubai can manage to have drinking water and fresh water, I'm pretty sure the land of abundance in America here should too. But if we are in a certain time period, wormwood will be the next thing to come round. One of the next things, in my estimation. Again, I'm going to do a warning video. I don't know how many people will watch it. People don't care. I'm doing the best I can to be a voice in the wilderness. I'm just doing a small part. Now we have this already happened here in Ohio. We had a lot of wind. We had stuff going on. But again, the places they show you just always seem so contrived and set up that sometimes it's hard things, all right? But again, everybody is already declaring these things to begin with. New Jersey has been under some type of state of emergency since January due to winter storms, and it just was never lifted. That's what we need to watch for, is this stuff not being lifted. Okay? It's best to be as self-sufficient as you can anyway, and even the CDC and the government tell us that much, right? So anyway, I think that I basically was able to show you that this is definitely a trend for them. Now let's check into this. I don't know if anyone remembers this either, but like right before Musk allegedly sent that car into space, and I'm sorry, anyone that believes that, you're just blind. You're blind by his celebrity or something, because no part of that looked real. It looks fake because it's real. That don't even make, like, I don't even know anymore, like, where I'm at. Anyways, these people are all caricatures to me. Like, it's just funny at this point. Right after that, there was talk of them sending a rocket to the moon and literally blowing out a chunk of the moon just to see if they could send it off its orbit or some such thing. I don't know, man. Again, these things, even them just talking about it and putting these articles out is part of their ritual. All right. So let's see. Why are you going to do this now, NASA? It's not enough you're sending up balloons, but you're going to fire 3 rockets. Why 3? What's up there? What are you firing at, man? It will fire, and it's announced. It's not asking you as a resident of planet Earth, do you want us to do this? They never do ask us. We're only as free. I mean, and again, make a refuge of your mind and be free in your mind, because this place is whack, man. It will fire 3 scientific sounding rockets into the moon's shadow on Monday, April 8th, in what will be a total solar eclipse for 115 miles wide path through parts of Mexico, 15 states, and Canada, and a partial solar eclipse for the entire Americas. The event will see a sudden drop in sunlight. Oh, gee. Oh. Oh. Do you see that? Like, I can't even. Serpent deity. I don't know what to say. The space agency's project atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path will investigate how that drop in sunlight and temperature affect Earth's upper atmosphere. APEP is named after the serpent deity from the ancient Egyptian mythology, nemesis of the sun deity Ra, according to NASA. Are you getting it yet? Nothing I've said has been a lie. It has all come from God's gift of discernment, from His Holy Spirit. I've been warning about all of this since the last eclipse. And again, God has been warning through a variety of us since the last eclipse. Now the church wants to finally get on board. Well, I'm glad that they're getting on board. That's great. But where were you when some of us were undergoing this silent persecution? Where were you when we're losing our jobs because we happen to mention that we're anti-V, or that we are Catholic or practicing Christians or Bible-believing folks? It's a little late at this point. There's not much time left to repent. NASA's suborbital rockets won't launch into totality. Instead, they'll go from Wallops Flight Facility in Wallops Island, Virginia, from where 81% of the sun will be blocked by the moon. That moment will happen at what? 15:33? Is that 3:33? 12 plus 3 is 15. 3. Yeah, that's 3:33. Are you kidding me? Like, what more do I have to say to people? What more do I have to show y'all? I wish there was more people here. I'm sorry that there aren't. Again, I'm very well aware that more people see my video than should, considering they don't get many views. Moon shadow. However, this won't be the first simultaneous measurement taken from different locations in a very special layer of Earth's atmosphere during a solar eclipse. On October 14th at 10 a.m., 10:35 and 11:10, the same 3 rockets were launched into the moon's shadow during another partial solar eclipse. Will or were? I think did this already happen? However, this won't be the first time a measure taken from doing that in a very special area. During October 14th at 10, the same 3 rockets were launched. Let's check this out. Oh, they did this in 2023 as well. Boy, doesn't it all, I mean, life has gotten amazing here on planet Earth since they've started doing all this stuff on a regular basis. Like, it's all just amazing. All 3 scientific 216, 219, 218, 222. All 3 scientific payloads were successfully recovered to be reflown. Okay, so they're using the same rockets. Let's continue. The point of APEP is to look for perturbations, changes in the Earth's atmosphere during the eclipse. They will enter the ionosphere where the air becomes electric. It's here that ions and electrons wax and wane in temperature and density at sunrise and sunset. It's expected that the rapid eclipse of the sun will see waves ripple through the ionosphere. It's an electrified region that reflects and refracts radio signals, meaning it can jam signals, right? So ask yourself, when all this, what are they looking to have a built-in excuse for something that may happen? Are they looking to have a built-in fall guy? As we see much with our current POTUS, he's the built-in scapegoat, or appears to be. Yeah, so they like to do this type of thing. I'm going to end this video so it's not too much longer, and I'll go ahead and add a few things in the comments, some links and stuff for you guys. If you're interested in hearing the actual warning, I will film that later. I don't know if I'll do it live or as an upload. I have not yet decided. But I'm trying the best I can to remain in a prayerful, hopeful state of forgiveness these days. And so if I don't interact a lot, that's why. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I never know who I'm talking to through the internet. And yeah, I'm going to leave that at that. So I'll include some links for references. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you.